Good morning and welcome to all of you. My name is Eric Golden. I am one of the leaders of the EXP Freedom Team. If you are part of the EXP agent group, that's part of our group, we want to welcome you. If you haven't been here regularly, or maybe this is your first time, again, a personal welcome to each and every one of you. If you happen to be a guest, someone from another brokerage just wanting to see a little glimpse behind the curtain as we interview our Chief Growth Officer today, Michael Valdes. You're going to see a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes, but you're going to understand a lot about the culture of who and what EXP is all about. I want to remind each and every one of you, by the way, a little housekeeping for the EXP agents, that we are part of a group called the Freedom Team. 3,000 agents and growing, all within the organizations of Sean Sturrock, Jeff Morrell, Jay Nelson, Kathy Carter, Tim Hollenden, and myself, Eric Golden. And what we do for our agents is over and above the things that EXP, which is enormous, does for us. I want to share just briefly, quickly, if you haven't been part of the awareness of what we do for each and every one of our agents. I want to make sure you know that the Freedom Team has a private workplace page in which we can actually talk about things related to our group. We give additional training, recognition. I'll show you that right away. Let me share my screen. Again, a brief moment of housekeeping. If you're a guest, hold on for just a minute or two. I appreciate it. We're going to share my screen. This is Workplace. If you don't know how to get to our specific group, all you do is go up here and type in Freedom Team, and look what pops up. You click on it, and there's the Freedom Team. The first thing you're going to see in the Freedom Team as you pop up is a calendar. And I want to talk about that calendar briefly, but before I do that, here is where we put a number of different things that our group is doing, things that will help you, like trainings on more transactions, how to attract more agents if that's what you're interested in. But the most important thing on a daily basis is what's going on with the Freedom Team. And here's a calendar, an example of what's going on. On Mondays, we always have agent attraction training in which we can train you on how to professionally ask other agents if they're open to look at EXP. If they're not, we're still friends, still referral partners, but it's always nice to learn professionally how to attract agents. On Tuesdays, we do more transactions. We teach you things, everything from what crypto can be to your benefit and how to deal with probate, if that's what you're interested in. Again, lots of training every Tuesday to get more transactions. Normally on Wednesday, we do more lead generation conversations, those that are interested in that. And although today's Wednesday, we're doing a special interview. Of course, we do this about once a month. By the way, the next one will be coming up with the president of EXP, Dave Kennord. That'll be on the 2nd of November, 2022. And on Thursdays, we do a level 2 training for those that want to attract agents, maybe talk to brokers, talk to teams. We do a little more specialized trainings. All those trainings are at 8 a.m. Pacific, which is 11 a.m. Eastern. And again, Monday through Thursday, we've got something for you, whether it's agent attraction or more transactions. We also have some concierge hours. For those of you who are interested in lead generation on Mondays, now we have at 11 a.m. Pacific, we do a KV Core website training help, and we do a general concierge Tuesday and Thursday at the same 11 a.m. Pacific. So again, make sure you find the calendar. We do email all of our agents in the Freedom Team once a week, normally on Sunday, with upcoming events. So make sure you don't disregard those emails. Just look at them once a week and understand what's in it for you. Again, great benefits. Over the last week, we've launched a brand new website. Disregard the words at the bottom. That website will be found at freedomteamsupport.com, freedomteamsupport.com. And what we'll have in that is a public-facing site. It's not a workplace. Guests can go to it. You can refer your guests to it. But what they'll see is a calendar of events of things we do. In addition, onboarding requests right in the middle. If you're bringing an agent on board and you want someone to give them special attention in addition to what EXP does, you fill out the onboarding request as they're filling out the application. And one of our key advisors will reach out to that prospect and help them through the onboarding process and focus them the right direction as they're coming in. Now, as their sponsor, you should take a role in doing that as well. But realize that we leave no one to fall through the cracks. We help every agent that's onboarding if you fill out the onboarding request. On the right side, you'll see recognition. Anyone that's brand new, recognize yourself. Sponsored, tell us about someone you've just sponsored. Someone sells their first property at EXP. Let's recognize them. We can do that in the newsletter that we send out once a week. We can do that on our feed. We can do that in lots of different ways. To the left is called the brain bucket. The reason we call it the brain bucket is we realize that we run out of energy. And the reason we run out of energy is because we run out of motivation. So what we've done is we've actually come up with a number of listening modules, things that are on YouTube, things that are books, things that you can listen to. I do recommend you go through the first handful right off as we've listed them. But below that, there's videos and audios, all different lengths, on all different subjects. They all have to do with being better at doing our job, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner, if you will, being a realtor. So I highly recommend you begin to fill your brain bucket. Best way to do that is to turn off the Rolling Stones. Last time I checked, they haven't sung a new song in quite a while, but you're living a new life. Again, take control of your life, turn off the radio at least during the day, and fill your brain bucket. Lastly, before we get to the interview, on the lower left here, more transactions. We've got every training that we've done on Tuesdays over the last 7 months in that link. So if you want to learn anything about anything relating to more transactions, just peruse what's there, click on it, and learn something. If you want to learn something about agent attraction, right there in the middle, Freedom Team Attraction Training Recordings. What we want to train you how to do is how to professionally talk to other agents about this great company. With that said, that was a handful. Sorry about the long-winded messaging, but we wanted you to know. What we want you to really know, in addition to that, is a lot more about EXP and who we are. And the best way to do that is to interview some of the not only successful agents that have come to EXP, but some of the corporate executives. Over the past few months, we've interviewed Glenn Sanford, the founder, the CEO of EXP, Jason Gessing, one of the top leading agents, a guy named Brent Gove. And today you're going to hear from Michael Valdes. Let me pause for a moment and say, anyone, I'm in the state of Florida, anyone that's been in the path of Ian, the hurricane, whether it be in Florida, up through South Carolina or beyond, you know, our heart goes out to those of you that have had any kind of negative issue because of that storm. I'm in the middle part of the state. It was expected to go just above me, and then it was expected to go right through me. Then it ended up going right below me. We didn't have as much damage here, but because I knew that there was going to be some effect and my internet was going to be affected, what we decided to do this time, which we normally don't do, is record Michael before the storm so we could play him after the storm, because I didn't want you all to show up and him not be here present because I couldn't connect the dots. So I apologize. We're going to run a recording. It'll be incredibly efficient because we've actually scaled it down. Normally we'll keep you for 45 minutes or so. Today it's only about 35 minutes. You're going to love the content. As you go into the recording, I want you to understand this. I want you to understand that the first couple of minutes, there's a little bit less sound production, but as it rolls in the first 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, you're going to love not only the volume you hear, but what you hear from Michael. So without any further ado, let me bring you Michael Valdes and our 20 questions from the EXP Freedom Team. We're going to run 20 questions with executive of EXP, Michael Valdes. And I'd like to warm this up, Michael. And first of all, thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited that you're here.
Can you turn it up?
It's really muffled, Eric.
Freedom Team of 3,000 agents that are EXP. Is that still muffled? Good. 47 states. Give me a second. Was that better when I turned it up? We do it.
It's still kind of muffled.
We do it one other way. 1 second. Hold on a second. Tell me if this is better. 7 or 8 countries, a lot of those countries.
By the way, I'm in Naples.
Thank you for that. But a lot of people don't know who you are. So
Hurricane.
way back and questions as quick as you can answer, just like they used to do on the Tonight or the Nightly Show. So, number one, Michael Valdes, where did you grow up? And tell us quickly about your early life.
Sure. Well, Eric, first of all, thank you for the invitation, for being on your show. It is so impressive. Congratulations on the growth of your organization, 3,000 people, and as we say, 3,000 lives touched. So thank you for what you do and what you have done as a network effect for those 3,000 people. So thank you for this opportunity. And absolutely. So I'm born and raised in New York City. So yep, that's me. I'm the one that was actually in the city, which is probably why I have such big energy here. So it's the only way that you can sort of get seen and heard and sort of like do everything else. It was a loud city, but it's I'm a city boy. I actually love the city. I still have a home in New York. I have a home in Miami now. I'm about to close on a property in Tulum. But I'm born and raised in New York, and my dad was an attorney. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And it was a pretty good childhood. My dad was actually, he was from Cuba. My mom was from Spain. And my dad was actually one of Batista's chief legal counsels. And he was part of Cuba's history. And he was arrested as a political prisoner and released during the Bay of Pigs in a prisoner exchange program. So, you know, we were raised with a really strong sort of work ethic, and the idea that you sort of work for today because tomorrow's never promised. And it's always been how I've pretty much lived my life, and really sort of growing up in that regard is something that I'm thankful for now. It's something that I'm thankful for because it's, you know, I have a lot of energy, and it's something that when I have a master plan in mind, it's sort of like it's built for today.
Well, it's funny that you say that. First of all, very impressive, the background, of course, and having the duality of the Hispanic or Latino background is always interesting, coming from two different areas of the world and meeting together in New York City. I'm actually from Miami. You talk about Miami, and of course I grew up with that blended background, or the pure background, one or the
Sure.
other. Leads to the second question. Being from New York, every kid has a dream or desire when they're a kid to be something. If you could have fast forward, maybe you want to be Aaron Judge this year, breaking all kinds of records. But what did you want to do when you were a kid? What did you want to do when you grew up?
You know, it was sort of like I was thinking about this because it was quite a while ago. But as I was thinking back, I always remembered that I loved to travel. I used to spend a lot of time with my grandmother in Madrid as a child, and I spent my summers with her. And there was always that sense of travel, even as a young kid, as I recall. And, you know, it was always that idea of exploration. And I think that there was probably a point where it was me wanting to be like an astronaut and trying to sort of like get into spaces unknown. And so there's always been that curiosity of learning so much. You know, it never left me, obviously. It's always the idea of travel to this day is, I think, the greatest university that any of us could ever attend. Meeting people, sort of getting exposed to different cultures. It's something that even to this day is something that I hold so close to my heart.
Traveling is a bug for everybody. It's one of the reasons realtors become realtors, is the flexibility of their schedule. And of course, with your role here at EXP, we'll talk a little bit about that and the travel opportunities for EXP agents. But now that we're talking about real estate, what was your first connection point to real estate as a profession, and how did you fall in love with it?
You know, as a profession, it probably happened pretty late. I've been in the real estate industry for 18 years now. But prior to that, I was in banking. I was at Deutsche Bank for many years, and so. But real estate was always around, right? It was, my parents had real estate, my grandparents had real estate. I bought my first house at 21. It was something that was always around me, but it was really, when I saw it as a profession, was when I first got my real estate license. It was for my own portfolio. When I left banking, I started buying a lot of properties, primarily in Miami, and that was around 2003, 2004. And at one point, I had about a dozen properties in my portfolio, just myself, and I thought it was a little top heavy. But one of the first things that I did, probably about after the third sale or so, I'm looking at my P&L because I'm a banker, and I'm saying, well, what's this cost with real estate commissions? And I figured, well, you know, I've got the time. I'm going to go and sort of get my real estate license. So I got my real estate license first for my own portfolio. And it wasn't until I saw it as a career until 2005 is when I first entered the industry.
The question that I had next is interesting that you led right into it, and that is you had a background in banking. And do you believe that background in banking gave you a separate edge, a specific edge, or a piece of knowledge or a perspective that others may not have? How did you use that as you moved into the real estate world to your advantage?
You know, that's an interesting question. For me, it was probably not so much in the banking, but probably it did play a bit of it because I was the first Latino director of Deutsche Bank in the United States at the age of 25. And so I always sort of like kept building my portfolio of clients. And I had a very large portfolio. I had over $1 billion of assets under management at the height of my banking career. And I had 5 bankers that reported into me as part of my team. And so as I was building this, I kept sort of dealing with people of an ultra high net worth category. And so when I first came into the industry, I only sort of was comfortable in that luxury market. So my very first sale was $6.8 million, which was the penthouse of the Fontainebleau. And my second sale was on Fisher Island for $12.5 million for an off-market property. And so, you know, I sort of say this to people and they're like, hold on a second, your first property was almost 7 million, your second property was over 12. And it's like, how did you do that? And it was like, my most honest answer is that I believed that I could. I always sort of thought this is, you know, and in hindsight, it's much easier to deal with somebody in a multi-million-dollar marketplace than it is to deal with somebody who has a more mid-range price point, because to them it's a more it's a more singular purchase. If you're dealing in the multi-million-dollar market, you're dealing in a market where it is at this point usually part of a larger portfolio.
Wow. I mean, it's funny, as someone that doesn't deal with the 6 and 10 or $12 million sales on a regular basis, it makes a lot more sense to be dealing that way. It's almost similarly the same way in a commercial versus a residential kind of feeling, because with commercial, it really is more business oriented than personal desire.
Sure.
And it's the same, I guess, in the luxury, especially at the levels you had. Catch us up quickly, and then we'll get into all the EXP stuff we want to talk about. You had some background in real estate before we came together. It's not bragging, by the way, if I'm asking. So I'd love to hear some of the things that you did prior to EXP in the real estate world, along with some of the, you mentioned the first Latina region or manager for Deutsche Bank. What else did you accomplish prior to EXP? And if you want to name names or companies, you're more than welcome to. And if you don't, that's fine too. But again, I'm asking, so it's free reign for Michael Valdes.
Well, most people can sort of look me up, but as I said, I was in production for a number of years in Miami. I ran a team that was ranked in the top 1% of realtors in the entire state of Florida. It was a good run. I was in the business from 2004, 2005 up until 2010, which is when I moved over to the corporate side of the business. And I was with Realogy for many, many years. And I was the senior vice president of Realogy. I did all of the international expansion for all 6 Realogy brands, which included Sotheby's, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, Better Homes and Garden, and Corcoran. So collectively, it was 113 countries and roughly about 300,000 agents. And then I came to EXP, and I joined as president of EXP, and I am currently the chief global officer of EXP, chief growth officer.
Well, as Ron Burgundy would have said long time ago, you're kind of a big deal. I mean, the truth is, you've done some things that other people just sit back, and I'm sitting here and I know a lot of the background, but I don't know the detail, and I am overly impressed. Now, with that said, I'm not going to say I'm easy to impress, but I am going to say I'm thankful that you'll join us in this conversation, and here's why. We often get, as I interview lots of people, we often get people that don't have a storied background, right? Going to EXP is something that they wanted to do in order to achieve some of the things you've already achieved. So I'm going to take a hard left here. It's not a question I've asked, but it is something that you've opened up. Why did you move to EXP? Because at Realogy, a great operation, and you were running it quite well. Why did you make that move?
You know, that's a great question, and I love answering this question. I actually, I wasn't challenged any longer in the job that I was doing. I felt as though I could phone it in. And it wasn't, for me, it was not, I need to be challenged myself in order to really just get into something, to wake up and really understand I want to do something that's different. And listen, EXP was not on my radar at all. I actually met Jason Gessing when we were both speaking at a conference. And I remember we were on a panel, and it was on global real estate. And at one point, Jason Gessing is one of the most humble and gracious individuals I've ever met in my life. And I had not known Jason before we both sat on this panel. And they were basically CEOs of very large other brands in our industry. And I was the SVP of Realogy sitting on the panel. And so we go through, and Jason had, because EXP had only opened up Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. And at one point, Jason had said, I don't feel qualified to answer these questions any longer about global real estate. And he says, you should probably defer to Michael. We had never met before. Wow. And so at what point in the conversation, people were talking about true disruptors in the industry. And I had known, peripheral information about EXP. And, people were talking about other brands that were disruptors. And I sort of said, I actually think one of the true disruptors in our industry is EXP. And so it wasn't just sort of like, a compliment because he paid me one, but I actually really thought that. And then at the end, he basically came up to me and he said, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, but would you actually ever consider having a conversation about an EXP Global? And so I said, listen, I'll have coffee with anybody. And so we did. And, it was a fantastic conversation. And it was probably about a month before Inman, going back now about 3 years. And then I had met with Glenn Sanford and Jeff Whiteside, our CFO and our founder, of course. And so then we sat down. It was supposed to be a 20-minute meeting. It ended up being a 2.5-hour meeting. And we just sat, created, and played. And I thought that was really, this is fun. This is interesting. This is good. And it just went from there. And it was, they made an offer, and it was interesting because I am born and raised in New York. I spent 15 years in one organization, and it was 10 years prior to that in the other. I don't move around a lot. And so I actually wanted to have a conversation with every board member. And so they allowed me to do that. I actually pulled every SEC filing that they filed and read it. I actually wanted to be very sure of where I was going. And then I came in and I actually met with the top agents that were here and wanted to know why they came over. So I did a lot of due diligence before I came over. And it was, and my accountant, who we went to school together, known him 30 years, he said to me, you're making a grave mistake. He says, you're number 3 at the largest real estate company in the world. What are you thinking? And I sort of said, I've got to follow my gut. And it has been an extraordinary journey. And 6 months after he told me that, we had dinner and he apologized. And he said, you were right. You were right. And so it was really fun.
No, and to reference a question earlier, there's no phoning it in at EXP because we change regularly, not our goal, but our plans in order to achieve them. You're in a very unique 100%. Role. can you explain a little bit your primary, we know that you're head of global, but what is your primary responsibilities? Because I'm going to dive in this next section of questions.
Sure.
How you interact with the agents and benefit them, but what are your primary responsibilities and goals?
Sure. So for the last 2.5 years or so that I've been with EXP, my role was president of EXP Global. A month ago, I was promoted to chief growth officer for all of EXP. So, so now really looking at everything domestic, Canada, and commercial, including global. So basically everything that's on the real estate side would now be focused on what we can do to grow those sections and have a greater opportunity for the agents that are here. So on the global side, we obviously look at new countries to expand the brand. Now remember, we are not a franchise. We are the largest independent real estate company in the world at this point. We are now in 22 countries, 84,000 agents around the world. And so that is a very unique position because it's not as though with my old organization, you just needed to find somebody who would write you a check for a franchise. This is actually going in and being a local player, providing somebody with a global platform and being able to then grow your business. So we have a very stringent look at how we look at any new countries. We've got about a 20-point checklist. We look at GDP, we look at competition, we look at where the agent population is. We basically look at something, and this is where my banking comes in. I want to be somewhere as a cash flow positive to at least cash flow neutral between 18 months to 24 months for any country that I open. So we start making financial analysis for anything that we open. So we do want to have a healthy appetite of an agent base. We want to have a healthy appetite of interest in that country, and we go from there. And then we're at any point, we're probably at different levels of due diligence for over 20 countries.
Well, speaking of that, I know that we've been opening up countries on a regular basis. We had a goal at one point, a certain number per quarter, but I don't want to reference that because again, you in this relatively new position, a month old, some of those numbers can shift. Like I said, the plans change, but the goals stay in place. So where do you see us internationally going over the next period of time? And you can set the time frame, totally up to you.
So last year, we were very public as to the statement that we said that we would be in 50 countries within 5 years. We are still very much on track for that. We just opened Chile last week. We have announced that we'll open up 2 other countries before the end of this year, which includes Dubai and Poland. So that would get us to 24 countries at the end of this year. Remember, we've opened up 19 countries in less than 2 years. So we have been on an incredibly aggressive trajectory, and this is during a pandemic. And this is with me ever getting on a plane to any of these countries. So that can never have been done at any other company. It is only this model, virtually on a cloud-based model, that allowed us to have that sort of success and that sort of growth trajectory. Could not have happened anywhere else. Physically, could not have happened anywhere else.
Isn't it funny? It's truly amazing that we can use the word virtually in 2 different ways. Every other company says we could virtually do this, but we actually virtually do.
That's right.
So reining it back into the U.S. I know that you had mentioned that growth is one thing, but growth comes from satisfaction of the agents itself. We are known
100%.
As Keller at one point was known, at Remax was known, and I wasn't around when Caldwell was probably known this as well, but we're now the recruiting company. You look at the numbers. As much as we're recruiting, we're also the production company. So can you speak to that in the public eye, being looked at as one, but being looked at as one, but really being the other? How would you explain that?
I was at Inman, Vegas a couple of months ago, and Mike DelPrete was the opening speaker there. And he is a very well-known, well-respected real estate data specialist. He studies everybody. And his presentation was very interesting. And I would encourage anyone to look up Mike DelPrete YouTube video at Inman Connect 2022 in Vegas. It was the opening, the opening speech. And there he did a comparison of EXP and 6 other companies. He showed the trajectory of where EXP surpassed transactions beyond Realogy. Now remember, Realogy is 6 brands. We actually went and surpassed them earlier this year by transaction count. That means that we are the most productive company in the industry. That is not us saying it. It is an independent researcher that has studied every brand, and it's their numbers. So that's why I encourage you to look up Mike's presentation, because it's not me telling you. It's him doing the research as an independent person. He is not related to us in any way, shape, or form. He does not sort of have any relation to any real estate company. So he really just touts himself as an independent person. So when we sort of talk about that, that is an incredible misconception in our industry, because when we start talking about revenue share is one of the greatest differentiators of our brand, but there isn't any revenue without transactions. So there's no revenue share without revenue, and you can't have revenue if you don't have transactions. And so when we start looking at this, we are first and foremost a real estate company. We are the largest independent real estate company. We are a global company. And there's only, by the way, a very small percentage of our overall agent count that even participates in revenue share. So that's another sort of misnomer. It's probably only about 13 or 14% of our entire agent pool that even participates in revenue share. So the rest of them just focused on doing business.
87% or so come over here because it's just,
correct,
in their eyes, a better place to transact real estate and enjoy the rest of their career.
Look, Eric, first of all, we're probably one of the most competitive commission-based splits in the United States at an 80-20 starting point. When you get to $16,000 cap, which for a lot of productive agents is not really very difficult to achieve. And at that point, you're at 100% commission. And then you get the ability to be gifted stock. There's actually another opportunity for an agent to come in and participate in a stock buying program. So it's 5% of any of their commissions. They can buy stock on an open market at a 10% discount, and the company pays them the delta of that discount. So that in and of itself is a reason enough for someone to come in and build their own financial legacy with us, which so many people do. And that is why people come in and build their futures with EXP.
And that has nothing to do, the opportunity to sell more real estate, use all of our systems, and to acquire equity in the company at either a discount or gifted, has nothing to do with the recruiting or agent attraction portion of the
100%.
Crazy. Now, let me ask you this though. If you could go back a number of years when you were an agent running a successful team, and you imagine now seeing EXP's model. So assuming we had our model back then explained to you, what do you think would be the 1 or 2 things that would have caused you to go, wow, not necessarily I'm going to move, but I have to listen and understand? Because one of the things we do as attraction specialists at EXP is we want people just to look at the opportunity, to understand it for themselves so they can make an educated decision. If you were willing to go through that process a number of years ago when you were an agent, Michael, what would you have thought to be your leaping off points? What would have separated EXP as the margin winner for you?
Yes, I think that people need to remember that people do business with people that they like and trust. So many people falsely believe that they need a brand behind them in order to grab the business. You don't. People do business with people that they like and trust. If you actually go in and start looking at the different agencies that are out there and agents that are with them, and you start looking at and polling the client, most clients don't even know who they work for, what agency they work for. And so they do business with you. And so one of the things that I would have looked at is when I go back to my first sale, I would have capped on my first sale. And so when I would have looked at that, I started thinking to myself, okay, how much did I pay my brokerage over my career? And that could have been in my pocket, not theirs. That is a really, really compelling conversation to have. And that in and of itself is very strong. And then when you add everything else, when you start sort of thinking about the idea of legacy, what you want to leave behind, and you start thinking about that to me is where that conversation is something that you can't ignore. That conversation becomes so compelling that you should sort of like even get out of your own way. And it's not about you. It's about what you want to leave behind. It's about your children, your own legacy, your own thought of what you want people to remember you by when you're no longer here.
You mentioned the fact if you look back and say, how much money am I going to pay my brokerage over my career? One of the most stimulating conversations I'm in with commercial agents around the US, around the country, is in there and other companies, I can ask them the question, because in commercial, as you know, it's really almost always drills down to the numbers. It isn't as much about relationships as about numbers. Can you talk briefly about why our commercial opportunity, only a 2-year-old opportunity at this point, last time I saw we were ranked number 11 in the country in only 2 years. Can you speak to how big an opportunity is from the cash in my pocket, commission in my pocket perspective? Because once a commercial agent hears the soundbite you're about to speak, and I'm going to put it in front of lots of them, once they hear this soundbite, I hope they're going to say, you know what, at least I have to take a look at it. So can you speak to the financial difference between EXP's commercial business and everybody else that we're aware of?
So here you go. You're sort of talking about the fact that it's more emotionally removed for commercial agents, and you're absolutely right. So here is for every commercial agent listening. Do you do more than $20,000 on any transaction? If you could cap at that $20,000 transaction, right? That's what you pay into EXP. You're at 100% commission. It's an 80-20 split with a $20,000 cap. I'm going to wait for that mic drop moment, because that's really what it is. And it's the idea that you have all of the tools that you need to run your commercial business. And to your point, Eric, we have actually now reached the top 10 of all commercial real estate agencies in the United States in less than 2 years. It is an incredible operation that we are doing. We have interest globally with everything that we're doing there, with so many commercial agents that are coming in. Well, I spoke to Jim Wong, the president of EXP Commercial, yesterday, actually, and we are going to be building an internal referral network globally within our 22 countries for buyers that are interested in properties internationally and vice versa, buyers that might be wanting to diversify their portfolio and look to operations in Europe or the Middle East. We're about to open in Dubai now. That's going to be a whole new influx of potential buyers for commercial properties. We are right now at an incredible sort of point in our career within EXP and our trajectory as a company, that for commercial agents to truly see what our offering is an incredible opportunity, and we welcome that conversation with everyone.
An awesome answer, as the others have been. We're rounding the track. We've only got just a couple of questions left. These are some of my favorite questions because they literally tell us more about you than any questions to date, I believe. The first one is this: 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years from now, you're young enough to still be enjoying doing work if that's what you choose to do. Again, at this point, you've made enough money. We know that you've made enough money to be able to enjoy the rest of your life. Now you've got to find projects to enjoy the rest of your life. So if you had to leave the real estate space 10, 15, 20 years down the road, given what you know about the world today, what would you be doing?
So that is an interesting question, and I've thought about that. You know, my first part of my career was finance. My strongest part has been real estate, and I actually do think there's probably a world of politics at some point in my last chapter or my last trimester, as it will. And that, but that to me is for the idea of helping people. And I've been around the political environment through my dad and other folks growing up. And, you know, politics is almost too much of a business. And what I'm trying to do is a little bit more wholesome, and I'm not quite sure that that has synergistic values. So I haven't sort of delved in deeper enough, but one of the things that I am starting actually this year through my trust is actually setting up a foundation that I want to do for really empowering other entrepreneurs of Latino descent coming into the business world. So I'm looking to create that formally. I've been sitting with my attorneys now to structure that, and I'm hoping to actually premiere it by next year.
A humanitarian in addition to everything else. So we appreciate that as well. But again, you couldn't be doing what you're doing if you don't have that within your spirit. The political direction, we'd love to have someone like you. I don't know where you stand, but I'm going to love the way you stand there. That's all I'm going to say. But second question would be this: we don't know what's behind the curtain at EXP. You know much better than anyone else, and especially if you're a prospect listening to us today, you wouldn't know this. So here's the second thing I'd really like to know: some insight from behind the curtain. Tell us something about what goes on between the executives. You mentioned our founder and our chief financial officer and our CEO. And I know they're very synergistic. You've been added to that again now with head of commercial with James Wong. So can you tell us a secret sauce that goes on behind the way you deal with each other, the camaraderie that's there, something that gives us in the outside a really good feeling of what's going on the inside?
You know what? That's a great question. I have to tell you, the whole senior leadership team loves each other. Like, we're all friends. That's never happened to me anywhere that I've ever worked. And I think that also really sort of shows what our success has been. We trust each other. We're one collective unit. You know, you start thinking about Glenn as really our founder and our leader of this. Glenn is the only CEO of any real estate company that was ever an agent. Think about that for a second. So you think about everyone else that is running real estate companies. Glenn is the only one that was ever an agent. He started this as an agent-centric company. He started it, this is an agent helping agents. That is the way that everything leads with all of our conversations. When we start talking about this, how will this help the agent? Every conversation that we do, and we're all focused with that same thing in mind. When you start sort of having, you know, people in my position that was also in an agent and knows what agents go through, it's a different perspective when you start looking at it from that way. A lot of our competitors came from other industries, including my old company, where it wasn't real estate related, and it makes a difference. Because it is really, really hard for people to understand what an agent goes through every single day. When they start from zero every single day, when they have to basically, you know, kill what they hunt, that's how they eat. That is something that, you know, Glenn wanted to change that. And with this model, he actually did. He allowed agents to be able to have other streams of residual income so that they didn't have to rely on just the next sale. And that to me was somebody that is brilliant in that way.
You know, I think that Glenn is like the Steve Jobs of our generation. When I'm sitting with Glenn, he is not like 5 moves ahead on a chessboard. He's on another table. And so when he starts thinking about things and solutions, it's just incredible to sort of see how his mind operates to reach solutions. So it's really It's such a cohesive team, and I think that makes an incredible difference as to what the results are.
And finally, Michael Valdes, Chief Growth Officer of eXp Realty. For marketing purposes, I don't know any other driver that's bigger than the fear of loss. And every agent that's not with us is losing the opportunity to gain what eXp can gain for them. So as a last ditch effort, someone's listening as a prospect, and you were to tell them, you know, what would be the thing you would see them not to benefit from by remaining where they are? Now, again, we don't ever tell people they should move, but we can always paint a picture of what they may miss if they're not here. Could you end our wonderful interview, as good as I've had, and I've had some good ones, can you end with what the fear of loss should be for an agent that's aware that we are an alternative or an option to their career?
I'm gonna answer that a different way. I always sort of say that when you start speaking to people that are at EXP and people that sort of say, EXP changed my life. By the way, when I first came here and people started saying EXP changed my life, I thought I made the greatest mistake in moving over. I thought, oh my God, what is everyone drinking the Kool-Aid? What is going on? And it took a while for me to get it. It took a while for me to understand, wow, this really does change people's lives. And it's not something that I can tell anyone. It's something that has to be experienced. And what I will say, what I say to many people, is that if you believe that EXP did change your life and that it was an incredible gift that you received, when someone starts telling this to somebody else, all they're doing is sharing a gift that they've received with somebody else. And someone may be at the right time to receive that gift, or they may not. And that's okay. But it is indeed a gift.
Well, our gift today was having you as part of this experience. We appreciate you being in a leadership role. You definitely deserve to be there, and we're thankful that Glenn and the team have recognized you as such, and Jason reached out to you on that panel back a while ago. We look forward to having you back at some point in the future when we have more updates and things to talk about. But between now and then, we will look forward to seeing you at the next big event, which of course is EXPCon in Vegas, just a few weeks away. So again, thanks for all you do, Michael, and especially thank you for your time today.
Eric, thank you. This has been so much fun. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you for what you're doing and the lives that you're touching. Thank you, Eric.
Have a great. Well, there we go. Recorded format. Sorry about the voice for a little while. We've got an intimate group here today, and you can keep recording, Kim, but we'll cut it when we want to cut it. But anybody have any feedback? Anything that was? I mean, I wrote down 3 or 4 things. Now remember, I was in the interview, and then I've watched it at least 4 or 5 times since. And like Kim noted, if you haven't watched the Michael DelPrete speech from Inman, she's got the link in the chat box. You should definitely see that. It'll add great strength to you. But anybody have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to personally say I think that's been the best interview, but not by a little, I think by a mile. Wow, the content was phenomenal. My mind is spinning right now. I'm thinking over the last several months, I've got about a half a dozen people, 2 are brokers that I'm like, I'm gonna do everything in my power, even if I got to set up another Zoom and we watch it together. I think that flat will move the needle, if not all the way over, on some of the brokers that have looked at us that haven't made the move. Anybody else's feedback? Jeff, some of you guys have been around for a long time. I thought that was unbelievable for a broker to hear. Not just a broker, even maybe a seasoned agent who's going, where do I spend my next 5-10 years as I want to eventually head into retirement? That was awesome. Am I alone, or was that better than the other interviews, all of us that have seen them?
They've all been
totally
good.
agree.
Yeah, that was awesome though. I mean, they've all been good, but that one was, loads of content on that one.
Yeah.
I loved at the end how he was talking about, like he thought, oh my gosh, I made the biggest mistake of my life. You know, when he was here, he was already here. And when people start talking about how it changed their life and everything, he was like, what have I done? I loved that. And, it's just helpful to even be remember as we, as we talk to agents, if we choose to do that for, anybody on here, that, all of us that have experienced it, we know, obviously we know what exactly he's talking about. But for somebody like him that was brand new to the company in a leadership role, had never experienced it. And he, even he in that leadership role was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, it made me think actually about church, right? It's like when you experience, if you, as a Christian, not to push that on anybody else, but it made me think it in that analogy. It's like, you got to experience it for yourself, to really understand what it is people are talking about.
I think it's something that, if I can just say, Eric, I think I think first of all, I mean, our whole Freedom team needs to see the interview. We need to get this emailed out to everybody and really encourage everybody to watch it. I think there's a lot of agents right now. Again, this market that we're in, there's just so much uncertainty. There's so much every day. Here comes more stories. This economist says this is going to be the worst thing in 100 years. There's another one says, oh, don't worry about it. We'll be out of this in 3. It's all over the board. I mean, the narrative right now coming from all directions is so convoluted, and I'm seeing EXP agents that are moving back to where they came from because it was comfortable and they had some leads and whatever. And, and I'm seeing a lot of new agents that are moving in here. I see Tina on here, she just moved here a month ago. And there's lots of movement going on right now, but people trying to figure things out. And I think it's an important time to just to buckle down and hang on to I just think what we've got here, that if you haven't been here very long or you haven't really plugged in, you don't know what you got. It's just another real estate company. And let me go back to where I was comfortable and over here, because I haven't really plugged in here, and I'm seeing some of that. And I just think some of what he said, there's so much there, and we have so much here that a lot of EXP agents don't know what we got. Yeah. So they're scrambling around. And again, we all have to be working. And this is a time to buckle down and work and look at your money. And, but again, I thank God every day for, the stock and the revenue share and just the multiple streams that are coming in. I mean, I look just down through my group that I got paid on. I got paid on 58 closings in this last, revenue share check, in addition to what my wife and I had. But, I mean, that's awesome. You know what I mean? And again, it's different for everybody here, depending on what you've done with that. But the fact that we even have that opportunity here can get us through these times. There will always be closings. There will always be people that need to move, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a job change, whether it's a military move, whatever, a death in the family, health issues. There's a lot of people right now, buyers and sellers, sitting back. Oh my gosh, I'm watching all the news. I don't know what to do. Let me hang tight, and I get that. But I think, there's ways, with all of us working together in the collaboration we got, there's ways to really stay ahead of this market. The Tuesday meetings have been awesome. Yesterday was great. The stuff that we're getting here, and then reinforcing that by listening to these people that have been around in big positions for a long time, just saying, hey, don't, this isn't a time to panic. It's a time to buckle down and pull together and, rally the troops, around the wagons, and we're going to be fine. We'll get through this, and it helps to hear something like this, So anyway, I think everybody needs to hear this interview all over the place, definitely our team.
Any other guests besides the leadership have something to say? By all means, jump on. Don't be intimidated to do that. I do want to reference the 87%. If you have people in your group and they're not participating in what we're additionally offer them on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, then they're missing a great opportunity in order to take advantage of training that's to the point, to the moment, action steps of things they can do right now. And that's what Tuesday is all about. And of course, Wednesday is normally just general lead generation conversations with Kim. And she's got a great background in order to be able to lead those conversations. Now, if you're part of the 13% that also want to attract agents, or in some of our cases, only want to attract agents, don't hold that against us. We're in a position where that's what we want to focus on. I'm going to remind you of 4 things that went on over the last hour. One of them, at the very end, when he was talking about the fear of loss, he made a point specifically about the concept that we as a company are doing things other companies are not doing. And it goes back to the executive team piece, okay? Because all of the people that we are talking to, for the most part, have been agents. And they think like agents, And now they're trying to bless agents, because we've been a brokerage for the last 10, 12 years now, as a brokerage designed for agents and, quite honestly, run by agents. So on a daily basis, we know what the average person is doing. The third thing he mentioned is the DelPrete interview. And the last thing he started with, remember this, he was the #3 guy at Realogy. So if you're putting on your agent attraction cap for just a moment, being able to say to somebody, hey, I've got an interview with the guy that was the #3 guy at Realogy and came to EXP in a role of growth, love to get you in front of it. If that doesn't get someone to think, wow, I wonder why the #3 guy at Realogy would leave Realogy. And the bottom line is it's better for him to explain his answer than us. And lastly, for those of us that do agent attraction, remember that we have a format where we can send these little videos out. Not only the 38 minutes you just watched, but we've divided that into 8 smaller videos. And we can train you on which ones to send and when to send and how to send them. So be aware that there's nothing scary at EXP, there's just unknown. And so we'd love to teach you what you don't know. Anybody else have a final comment or question? Jump in now and say it. If not, look for the next interview over the next 30 days. I'll announce who it's going to be and when and where. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody else again through the week on our massive calendar, which we, again, owe to the leadership of what we're all doing. It's a group effort, including the agents like a Brian or a Tolga that show up on a very regular basis. And we want to welcome all the newbies that will start showing up regularly. Go ahead, Sean, close it out.
Yeah, quick question, so I don't have to go back and try to review it. I got a couple of calls today. How many did he say? I know there were 7 different brokerages within Realogy. Over how many agents were there total? Oh, I thought he said 7.
300,000. 300,000.
300,000, 6 and 3. Okay, thank you.
And Kim will have a timestamp telling you about when to go listen to that exact piece. So
When will we receive that, Kim? Will that go out by chance today?
well, this week, and you may get the entire thing today. We're going to probably, Kim, is there a way to set up a text to going out to all 7 levels of what they missed and just send that out as a text link? And all they do is click the link and they get the interview. Is that possible?
Yes, it's possible.
Okay. Well, then in the next couple of days, Sean, we were shut out of EXP Freedom Team yesterday on CRM Grow, but we've got it working again. We work with their technical team and have it working. And so in the next day or 2, I think you can expect that to go out.
Perfect. Awesome. Great interview, man. Really good.
Looking forward to the next one. Okay, guys, enjoy. Thanks for being here. Kathy, of course, as always. Jeff and Sean, thanks for being my partners. Kim, thanks for doing the Goliath part of the work. So see everybody tomorrow on level 2 attraction and next week on all of the classes that we're holding. Make it a great week, everybody.
Thanks, Eric.